Hi everybody, welcome to this month's book club. As always, I'm super excited about the book. I guess if I wasn't excited, you wouldn't be seeing this video. So this month I read Peak Performance by Brad Stulberg and Steve Magness. And I love this book, and I underlined so many different things in it. If you're like a geek of research and numbers, there were a lot of really cool concepts in this book. I almost thought I could do 2 book clubs out of it, but then you would be denied the fun of actually reading the book, which I highly recommend. So as always, if you are watching this on YouTube and you're interested in getting our kind of like executive summary of the book, you can sign up at the OrganizingManiacs website. I am Chris Scrott with OrganizingManiacs, and we are a professional organizing company in Washington, D.C., helping clients with brain-based challenges like ADD, ADHD, OCD, and hoarding tendencies to live more organized lives through systems in their homes, through accountability, and through business consulting. So if you like some support around that, let us know. You can find us at OrganizingManiacs.com. But this book was all about getting more stuff done. And I feel like there isn't a day that goes by that I go somewhere, you know, literally standing at the grocery store line and people will say like, Organizing Maniacs, what do you do? And then I tell them and they're like, oh my God, I have so much to get accomplished and I never have enough time. Who relates to that? Me. And I'm sure all of you out there. So this book was just really about trying to get more done, but also finding your top peak performance and how do you go about doing that. I thought it was really interesting that in the book there was a survey, and I'm not going to give you like exact numbers, but I think it's very fair to generalize some of the statistics that they had in the survey that probably apply to, I would say, the majority of the workforce in the United States. And that had to do with the fact that only about half of us actually take a lunch break. I worked in corporate for a long time, and unless we planned a lunch as a group to go somewhere, I never left my desk, and I worked through lunch. And that was never good for my brain, right? Because I was still working. 27% of us are probably working from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. That's basically in the middle of the night somewhere. 29% of us work on the weekends. As a matter of fact, I'm doing this video on the weekend, so me too. 53% of people are feeling burned out. And I think just based on what I see out and about when I am helping people, I think those are really fair numbers. So he talked about you know, the book is basically how do you avoid getting burned out and actually figuring out how to do more, win less time, which is the ultimate goal we all have. If I could get twice as much work done in half as much time, why not, right? So the definition of burnout, which I didn't really think about before this book, is the physical or emotional collapse caused by overwork and stress. So thought you may be interested in knowing that. But the book had a lot of really interesting concepts. I'm just going to narrow it down to the ones that I felt like would resonate better and best with the people that we normally tend to attract and service. So my 3 takeaways from the book is that we only have a single reservoir of brain power. And that speaks a lot to like procrastination. You know, we wake up every single day and there are only so many, and you can use that as like willpower, brain power, decision-making abilities, whatever feels comfortable to you. I think it kind of all goes with the same section of our brain, is that you wake up with only so much of it available. So if you spend time inside of your closet trying to figure out what shoe to wear, what outfit to wear, that's burning your brain power. And then if you go downstairs and you can't figure out what to eat for breakfast, that's burning brain power. If you totally lose your keys and you can't find them and you spend 20 minutes looking for them, that's brain power. So by the time you get to work, you already have made several big or small decisions depending on how much time or frustration you spent doing that. And that has used up some of your brain power. So the concept is basically to eliminate some of these things that we're doing on a daily basis that may be consuming brain power that we could be using to do other things and be more productive. And I thought that was extremely powerful, right? Because I've read so much about people that have like capsule wardrobes. I have a shoe addiction, but I've seen like, you know, people that are always very well put together and they have these seemingly amazing wardrobes, but it's really just a few pieces that they interchange, and then they have, you know, whatever they need, and they're not standing in their closet every morning thinking, what am I going to wear to work? Because they already have a set or a system, or, you know, they plan in advance. If you are one of those people, perhaps that's something you should consider. I have a smoothie every day for breakfast, and I have done that for the last year and a half. And that's been like extremely helpful for me because I don't wake up thinking like, what am I going to eat today? I know exactly what I'm going to eat. It's a little bit of a, like an automatic brain power for me, and I don't have to spend time thinking about breakfast. So that has been really helpful for me to get like my morning routine kind of really compressed, and so I can get out the door and therefore I can get more sleep because I like to sleep. So those are just a couple of examples of, you know, how you may be able to compress your day. I know there are a lot of moms out there that, you know, like making lunches the night before or getting kids' backpacks ready the night before. Those are all things you can do in advance that would save your brain power in the morning. So as you get to work or as you start your day, you can feel a little bit fresher to just start making decisions. It doesn't go without saying that procrastination is a huge deal for all of us. I procrastinate all the time. Once again, I'm making this video on a weekend. One more proof that we need of that. However, if we try to make an effort to get some of our projects done that are really important or things that we need to accomplish in the morning, we wouldn't be using our brain powers doing things that are completely useless, maybe like reading junk mail or returning voicemails or doing things that we could very well do in the afternoon that may not require as much of our brain and save our brain freshness, whatever that means to you, to do, you know, productive work. Lately, I feel like I've been speaking a lot on chronotypes, and chronotypes is basically understanding your body energy. Some of us wake up super early and we're super productive in the morning. Some of us wake up later and we're more productive later in the day. So how do you also fit that into your chronotype is very important. There's another video that I did on the Power of When book, and I highly recommend if you're interested in chronotypes and energy to go find that one. There is a lot of studies, and you know, I think it's really interesting how some parts of the world have really always believed in this, but we are finally understanding the value of mindfulness and meditation. And I have a love-hate relationship with meditation. Sometimes I go, you know, weeks doing it every day, and then I go long stretches without doing any of it. But I also can always tell that when I am meditating, when I'm being more mindful, that there's a significant impact on my mood and how productive I am and how much stuff I get done. So they had a lot of studies and a lot of examples on how that's important. And so it goes without saying, we should be mindful about that. And one other thing that they talked about, which I feel like I preach this a lot too, is that when you are working on strenuous mental tasks and you just basically hit an impasse, you should stop working and you should take a break. In the book, he talks about using blocks of time. And there's a lot of different programs out there. There's the Pomodoro method. That's the only one I can think of at the top of my head. But he suggested working on blocks of 50 to 90 minutes and then taking a break that's between 7 and 20 minutes, depending on how much time you need. There is a lot of research that shows that that can be valuable. However, you also have to be mindful that your 7 to 20 minute break doesn't turn into a 3-hour back to procrastination, right? So how are you going to use that break time? How deliberate are you going to be in taking that break, and how are you going to go back to your project once you reach back to having to work on it? It's extremely important. So I felt like I needed to give you some applicable strategies to work from this book, and I figure that's probably the most valuable part. A lot of times I read books and I feel like, okay, what do I do with this now that I've read it? So these are some of the ideas that I have. And I see a lot of multitasking, and the whole idea of multitasking is so rewarding to our brain, right? You're working on 3 different things and then you're checking things off the list, but you are likely not getting as much done as you think you are. And the research shows that people would accomplish about 50% more if they just focused on one task at a time to completion, instead of multitasking. And that's a significant amount of time. So if you work, let's say 6 hours a day, and you're multitasking the whole time, you could get all of the work done in 3 hours instead of 6. So that gives you something to think about. So the strategy is, the next time you're doing something, maybe try to single task it and then be fully present in that task. If somebody comes in and they want something from you, perhaps you can see if they can wait, or if they can email you, or if you can put a sign on the door that says, I'm working on a project, and creating some sort of a separation that helps you be more productive. Sometimes it's important. I did a class last year at CHAD, and one of the persons in the audience, she got really mad when I said that we have to take back our time and that it is our responsibility to set boundaries with others, because she felt like, in the corporate world, they basically own your time. And I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I disagree so much that I felt like she didn't like my answer and she left. But I still stand by my, it's been months since that conversation, and I still stand by what I think that is the best way to be productive. You have to take your time back, and you have to take responsibility for it. And if it means that for 1 hour a day, you don't take phone calls, you don't respond to emails, and you put a sign on your door that says, or your cubby or whatever hanging from your chair that says, for the next hour, I will not be talking to anybody because I'm working on this project, then I think we should take our time back. So be fully present on what you're doing, whatever it is that you're doing, and commit to that, right? The second thing that was a takeaway is that when you are working on those 50 to 90 minute blocks, to really minimize distraction. And he went as far as just saying, like, turn your phone off. And lately I have tried to put my phone on night mode for, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour at a time, depending on what time of the day it is. And there's never anything that is like such an emergency that, people couldn't wait. I always, whenever I say that to parents, they always freak out. And they're like, well, my kids could have an emergency and the world could fall apart. Yes, the world could always fall apart, but it's very unlikely that it will. And I think we should remember that there was a time when we didn't have cell phones and people didn't have immediate access to us all the time. Like if you were driving from your work to your home and you were in the car for an hour, people couldn't get a hold of you. And if there was an emergency, they kind of had to figure it out. So I'm going to advocate to reverting back to old times and just setting these time blocks in our lives where we're just literally going to be disconnected from the world. I know it's scary, but you can do it. Another applicable strategy was that top performance in all fields could not sustain intense work that was more than 2 hours long. So I think sometimes I hear people saying oh, I'm gonna do this project all day on Thursday. And I think no, that's not gonna happen. So instead of us trying to save an entire day to do one big project, break that down into smaller chunks of time. I know it's counterintuitive and it feels counterproductive, but you are much more likely to get that project accomplished if you broke it down into 50 to 90 minute blocks and committed to that instead than saying, I'm going to write a book in one day. It's just not gonna happen. So ultimately, is like using time block is just, you know, one of the most revolutionary things that ever happened to any of us. Remember to, you know, use your time blocks between 50 to 90 minutes. I like 50 minutes because then I can work for 50 and take a 10-minute break, and then I'm very OCD about starting back on the hour, and then I can continue my work that way. So I'm going to wrap it up with one quote from the book that I thought was really interesting. It says, unfortunately, we have lost the notion of smart work at the expense of hard work, which somehow almost always gets confused with more work. And what that means to me is that instead of being productive, working smartly, we are just working hard and getting nothing done, and then going home and working some more and getting even less done. And now we feel guilty about the fact that we didn't get work done and that we didn't spend any time with our families. So my challenge to you is to work smart, whatever that is for you, so you can get more accomplished and still get some of your life back. So anyway, I'm Chris, Organizing Maniacs. If you're interested in the report, email us and we'll get you hooked up to get that on a monthly basis. Anyway, always a pleasure. I hope you're enjoying the book club, and I'll see you next month. Bye.